Hi, everyone. Well, I'm back. As some of you know, I took some time off. It was one of those rushing around, happy moments, sad moments, all rolled into one, but ultimately it was enjoyable. But I'm happy to be home, to tell you the truth. I need a rest. Anyway, back to the interviews, because I really do miss interviews. My guest today is an author. The name of her book is Tales of a Sunflower. When at last you face the chaos, you hear your own voice sing. Ladies and gentlemen, Valerie Young. Welcome to the show, Valerie.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
And it's nice to meet you. I just love the title of your book, by the way.
Thank you. Well, in the book, I explain why I'm calling it that, but you're from the western part of the North America, and what most people don't realize is wild sunflowers grow here that aren't like the ones you plant. They just grow wild in the sagebrush and out west, and they grow wherever the seeds drop. And there's no water, it's usually the worst soil. They'll grow by the roads, and they're very tough. And this story about survival, that's something we've used. In fact, my friend gave me sunflower jewelry that I'm wearing today
Nice.
in honor of that, because that just became a totem for our family, I guess, a symbol for our family.
So when and why did you decide to write it?
Well, after I retired from teaching, I had the time, and this is a story that I shared about my life with different people. And they felt that it was a compelling enough story that I should share it and I should write it down. So I wrote the book and shared it with people, and they've really given me positive feedback about, that it's hard to put down. It's got a lot of interesting things. And I fictionalized it to the point where the people I have conversations with, they're kind of a compilation of different people, because I felt like I needed to respect their privacy. And I can't remember the term for it, but there's a name for a memoir where you're writing it, fictionalized it, so that you can do that. And I thought that was easier for me too, because you can't remember exactly every conversation you had. You remember about what was said. Right. So if you say this is based on a true story, it frees you up to fill in the blanks with that and be authentic. Like, this part's real, this part I had to create. So that's where I went with it.
Well, I'm just thinking, I've always wanted to write a book, but it's not easy. I've tried a number of times and I just didn't get anywhere. So was it difficult for you, or was it easy to do?
Well, it was difficult in a couple of ways. I mean, emotionally, it was very difficult. The book is it goes into quite a bit of detail about my life and the things that happened. I did have a coach that I had. She is also Canadian. and she kind of helped me tap into the emotions. And then I just kind of took off from there. I had a lot of hesitancy. This is my first book. And I was like, well, do I have enough talent to write a story? Will anybody want to read what I wrote? But I've had enough feedback with essays and things that I've written, and I've always written poetry and stuff like that. And people have said, you have the talent, just do it and let's see. And so when I did it, it only took a few months, but it's just kind of like I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a fire comes inside and you just start writing and writing and writing. And there for, several months, I wrote the notes, and then I worked through it, and she would talk me through it. And then I just, at some point, just kind of had to finish. And so I wrote it, and then I had, of course, you have to refine it, and you have to give it to other people to read it. And then they go, this doesn't make sense. And so you have to go back and redo it, which I was glad to do. I think that makes it a better product in the end when you put your ego aside and you listen to the people who are reading it.
Right.
So that it's a process, and I think I don't know. I mean, I've written a short story since then, and I'm researching another book. and I'm thinking about a series. So not necessarily in this vein. I think I'm going to do something lighter. I had to write something lighter after that.
No, I think I commend you for doing it, though. It's really good. Just thinking of how difficult it would be to put your ego aside and to listen to comments from other people. Because when you create something, it's yours, right? So when other people say, well, maybe you want to say this, or, was that difficult?
I look at all art this way. It's mine until I publish it. And then after you do your final product, it's no longer yours. And it really is none of your business, because it then lives between the observer and the piece. And they're going to put their own meanings on what you've written or your painted or your dance or any art form that you do. You create it and it's very personal.
Right.
And then you put it up there, and then it's between the reader and the book.
Okay.
They see different things in it that maybe you didn't intend. You see this all the time with musicians who go, well, the song was just a song. And everybody makes this big production because that's what it meant to them. So I learned that I'm going to do the best product I can, but it's going to mean different things to different people.
Right.
And some people are going to be offended, and some people are going to say, this is awesome.
Obviously,
I don't know. So if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it really does. Yeah, I just thinking about that because I was just really thinking about, because when I wrote speeches, like I belonged to Toastmasters one point, and once the speech is out there, now we would get feedback because we had somebody evaluate our speech, and you just have to listen to what they have to say, and you may agree or you may not agree, but you kept your mouth shut and let them have their opinion, right?
Right. And I take that feedback if I think it's valid. It's like, well, maybe you should do this better. But on the final product, very few people had what they could do to change it. They just were, I think they were kind of overwhelmed by the emotion of the book, because the book's very deeply emotional, and it tells the central theme of listening to yourself. Don't let others control your life, because it can lead to very dark places if you look to others to tell you what's best for you.
Right.
And so I think it's a theme that's compelling, not just for my culture and whatever I went through, but for everybody. We all have to get to that point, even with your own parents. Eventually you have to grow up and say, I appreciate your opinion, but I think this is what's best for me.
Right. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to read it before I did the interview. I think I told you, like, I'm in the process of reading 3 different books, and
Oh, I understand. Well, if you want, I can go through and tell them a little bit about it.
Yes, please do. Yes.
Okay. So you can buy it on Amazon. This is what it looks like.
Hold it up a little straighter.
Here we go.
There, perfect. Everybody can see your name as well. Okay, great.
Yes. Valerie Turner. And I just put into a drop in price for the ebook. It may take a while to come up from $5.99 to $2.99. If they will wait, it should come down just a little bit for your audience for a few. I'll put it up there for about a month, and then we'll change the price. But I thought that would be a nice promotion for this. But Kindle does their own thing and it's not instantaneous. But this is the story of, I grew up in a very staunch Mormon family in Idaho, way in the middle of nowhere. And I tell the story of the abuse and the religion and the issues that I faced as a child. And some of the things that I faced is, my mother remarried, and we went to live on a ranch, and it was pretty remote, like mountain lions roamed in the hills and that kind of stuff. I had a brother, and we went through this together. And towards the end of my teenage years, it just really kind of went bad. I got shot in the head. our house burnt down, and finally my brother was murdered. And so I told this story, and then it talks about how I go to college, and I go to a church college, and I get married, and I didn't have the best role models. And so the man I picked wasn't the best man. And I'll just leave that for your readers to find out what goes on there. And basically the center core was, I believed in our religion and I believed what they said. And one of the tenets is that men talk to God for you. And I was basing my decisions on that as something to hold on to. And of course, it wasn't working for my mom. It wasn't working for me. And when my husband did what he did, I finally had to face reality and realize that no God I could believe in would want this. And so it's just about me finally dismantling all that and rebuilding my life and my children's lives and learning to listen to myself. And so that's why it says, when you face the chaos, you can hear your voice sing. Basically, you have to listen. And singing was something that was important to our family. And so we were a family of singers. And that's kind of the story. It's, like I said, deeply personal. There's some things in there. There's like hard. And for me, changing the names and combining people, the events really happened in the book. So the events that I talk about are actual events. And they did happen in the sequence that I was talking about. But I did change the name of all the characters. I'm Jeannie, of course. But I felt like it was important to write it that way.
Okay. Did you write it in the third person?
No, it's written in first person. I put you in the story. I also talk about how important therapy is. I don't know if you know what child adverse experiences are, but those are things that's a checklist of things that happen to children that affect you in later life. It affects your relationships. It affects your physical health. I talk about my struggle with, being overweight and using food as a way of soothing, how that affects how you pick partners. And then what happens when I finally stop listening to my mom's thing that therapists are for crazy people, and my church, and I finally go find a good therapist, and she kind of helps me put the pieces together. Good. And so the book is dedicated to her, as well as the other therapist who helped me when my life fell apart at the time. Right. And so it just kind of was a way to tell people, it's okay if horrible trauma happens to you. You can put your life together and have a good outcome and live a good life and a happy life. It doesn't have to be that way. And so I felt like it was good for me and hopefully for others. A lot of people who are like very LDS will maybe have a hard time with it, but that's, like I said, that's about them. Yes. That's another reason I changed the names in the book. I knew my name, I would be known, but I figured the other people probably wouldn't want their name, especially in this community. Mm-hmm. That was a choice they could make if they wanted to say, hey, I did this with her, or I didn't. But the characters aren't really based on, aren't real people. Right. They're like bits of this person, and this person put together to make a new person, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Just thinking about it, because I've read lately a number of books sent to me by people I've interviewed, and a lot of the abuse, and I can relate to a lot of that. And I do know that when you're abused as a child, it changes who you were meant to be, right?
It does. It does.
So if you can see, and you look, and I was telling my daughter, you sort of live in a state of fog almost. And
yes,
that abuse is perpetuated throughout your life. And then there's a moment for most of us, if you're lucky enough, rather, that it starts to clear.
It does. Right? And you finally, and I talk about that, how, as a child, I'm trying to make sense of this world, and the adults around me are dysfunctional, and the religion isn't helping. And I clung to the religion more, but it, of course, didn't go well for me, because it doesn't matter what religion you are or what belief, whatever it is. Even if you don't have a religion, if you have like a dogma, if you listen to another person tell you what's best for you, you are going to have problems with that, because nobody knows what's best for you but you. Right. You can't really tell somebody else what's best for them either, because you can help your own children, but when they get to be an adult, you have to say, well, this is what I think, but you need to do what's best for you. And you have to respect that. And that's a lesson I had to learn. So it's not a religion bashing, because there's some very beautiful people in the book that were Mormon with me, and they were very kind, and I explained that too. So I hope the people who are non-Mormons say it was kind of nice to see both sides and the good things that happened with you, as well as the bad. But I think that's true of any group. There's good and bad in every group. So
absolutely. I really hope that a lot of people read the book, people who have been abused and people who haven't. For people who have been abused, they get to relate, right? And for people that haven't, they get to maybe a little understanding of why the abused people behave the way they do.
Yes. And I've had a couple of therapists who are not my therapists, but other therapist friends read it. And they said it's fairly good they said they thought like beginning therapists or people who had not treated trauma, they should read it, because it helps put them in the mind of the child and then the adult, so that they could see like almost a case study, but told from that person's point of view. And that was that was one of the points of the thing of like, you can get help and get out of this. I talk about post-traumatic stress disorder and how that affects you and all of those different things. But it's kind of like, even though it's not super long, it's just around 200 pages or less, it covers a lot of areas. And I don't know, I felt good about it when I was done. So what other people think about it, that, like I said, that's between them and the book.
Right. Well, I think congratulations on writing it and getting it through it and doing it the way you did. I think that's pretty awesome. Again, I'm really looking forward to it now more than ever. So I can't start a fourth book. It's just too much for my brain. As I get older, it gets more difficult. But I would like you to show the book again so people get a good view of it.
And if you want, I can put the link to you, a shortened link that'll take them to Amazon, and hopefully within a day or so, it'll go down to $2.99 for the e-copy, and they're more than welcome to buy that at that. And I did it for this podcast. Okay. So, but right now it says $5.99 because Kindle is in charge. Okay, great. But anyway, that's kind of where I was with that. And so,
yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So we're going to end it on that note. I just want to thank you. And I also would like to thank the audience for tuning in. I hope you continue to do so. And I hope you really take a time to, when people put their heart in a book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever it is, it really helps them to know that somebody out there wants to read it. So,
right.
And it does. Yeah. And that expands our minds when we read about other people, whatever way it's written. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay tuned, share, and hopefully you'll subscribe to my website, my YouTube site, rather. And and see you again. And remember, I'm going to say this over and over again, be kind. It's nice. It doesn't cost you anything. So just do it. Take care, everybody, and peace out.
A sense of community till it wax a place to be. A sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, You're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.